This happened when I was a teenager. It was Halloween night. My mom and dad had a party to go to, so it was my job to take my little brother trick-or-treating. We went around the closest neighborhoods before we stopped at my uncle's house like we did every year. My uncle invited us inside to have a glass of apple cider, a piece of pie, and to gossip about the things that had been happening at my school. We helped pass out candy, watched a few of the classic Halloween movies, and generally had a good time catching up with my uncle and his wife. It's the usual thing that I had done since I was a kid. It was getting late, and we were getting ready to leave when a shadow passed over the window. It was very unusual for someone to be lurking around our neighborhood. My uncle had already shut off the lights when we noticed the shadow. The first thought to go through my mind was the fact that someone had escaped from the state prison that was relatively close to my uncle's property. Ridiculous, I know, but my overactive imagination would take me to some insane lengths. My uncle told me to take my brother into his study, lock the door, and don't come out until he says to. I did as told. My brother and I quickly hid in the study and watched out the window for a few minutes. It seemed to linger on forever. To my utter improbable shock, a man in an orange jumpsuit crept towards the living room window as I saw from afar. I had to rub my eyes, wondering if my imagination truly was going insane. Now, my uncle wasn't and still isn't the type of guy that you want to mess around with. He served in the military, so he kept a lot of guns in the house to protect his family. He was a bit of a nutcase. I'm not really sure what was exchanged between the lurker and my uncle, but a gunshot scared my brother enough to pee himself. I unlocked the door to the study and ran outside to see exactly what had happened. My uncle was knelt down beside the guy in the orange jumpsuit. To my surprise, he was crying and profusely apologizing for firing the gun. It turns out that my cousin had decided to dress up as a jailbird last minute. He went to a friend's party and didn't want his dad to find out that he had been drinking, which was the reason why he was lurking around the house. He was trying to sneak in without alarming anyone, but he didn't know that his dad was still awake. My uncle shot his son without hesitation. He was questioned by the police and ended up getting rid of all of his guns in his house. My cousin recovered just fine with some time in the hospital and a story to tell now that we look back on and laugh at from time to time. He went on to graduate college and become a lawyer, actually protecting those who were wrongfully assaulted, so in the end, everything came full circle. I'm 18, female, and still scared about what could have happened last year. For the sake of privacy, I'll call my girlfriend Lisa. Lisa was a beautiful, smart girl with platinum blonde hair and blue eyes that can make anyone crave her attention. I hadn't been dating Lisa very long, maybe 5 months if that. Our relationship may not have lasted long, but I didn't have any hard feelings after the traumatic event we experienced. My girlfriend and I decided to go out with a bang for our final Halloween as youths by trick-or-treating as sirens. You know, the mythical Greek creature that lures men to their death with a special song. The costumes were on the slightly exposed side, if you know what I mean. We wore short dresses with ripped stockings and high heels, which drew more attention than we had hoped. We canvassed the neighborhood, which visited Mrs. Watson's house, Dr. Harrison's house, the elderly couple whose name I forgot, and the weird guy at the end of the road. We went to a party, had a few shots of tequila, and we went to a friend's house to smoke and eventually made our way back to my house with a bag full of candy. My mom questioned us about our night on the town. I assumed that she could tell we were a little out of it, but we engaged in a friendly conversation while sorting through our scrumptious-looking treats. Being a bit clumsy on top of all that was typical for Lisa. She dropped a handful of candy, which made my mom more suspicious, and then my dogs Poncho and Lilo gobbled up as much as they could. We laughed about 2 chihuahuas licking their lips after eating a lot of caramel candies. It didn't take long for the dogs to start acting weird. They began to foam at the mouth and violently convulsing. It looked like something straight out of The Exorcist. My mom frantically scooped up Lilo and Poncho. I called the police and tried my best to calm my scared girlfriend down. The police confiscated the candy. The vet sadly declared that our dogs had passed away before they arrived. Lisa and I fell asleep and woke up the next morning to the officer from the night before. The weird guy at the end of the road was arrested because he was stupid enough to touch the candy without gloves. Apparently he poisoned the candy with cyanide because the trashy lesbians are an abomination to the world and deserve whatever was coming to them. He was charged and sent to prison. Lisa broke up with me a few days after the incident and checked into an institution because now she suffered from PTSD. I'm sad that my dogs passed away, but I'm grateful that neither Lisa or anyone else in my family had eaten the candy. Who knows what could have happened? I urge you to be careful when you take your little ones or anyone else out trick-or-treating. Please check the treats that you receive carefully and throw out anything that looks like it had been messed with. It's for your own safety.